what we want to do is to expand the brackets and simplify. So in the normal way, 2 times 3 gives us 6. 2 times minus 2, and that gives us minus 4 root 3. Then we have 3 times root 3. And the last term is minus 2 root 3 times root 3. Now, we're going to have a minus 2 as the coefficient. Root 3 times root 3. We could, for the time being, write that as the root of 9, so root 3 times equals the square root of 9, because we multiply the two numbers under the square root. So 3 times 3 is 9. 9 is a square number, so the square root of 9 is 3. What we have to do next is to simplify like terms. So these are of the same type. 6, now I've got 3 root 3, take away 4 root 3. That gives me minus 1 root 3, which I can write as, well, I'll put in the minus 1 just now. And we said that square root of 9 is 3, so I'll put the 3 here. Next line, I'm going to remove the minus 1 and just write it as minus root 3, and then minus 6. These two quantities simplify, and we're left with minus the square root of 3. Second example, there are two things worthy of note. First of all, we've got a squared bracket, and secondly, we've got two different surds in the bracket, a root 5 and a root 8. So we'll proceed as we normally would with a square bracket. That's the first step. And the second step is to begin the process of multiplying out. So we've got root 5 times root 5. Now, I'm going to write that as root 25. But some of you may want to go straight to 5. So root 5 times root 5 is root 25. Square root of 25 is 5. We saw in the first example, root 3 times root 3 equals 3. Next thing, root 5 times root 8, that's root 40. Then we've got root 8 times root 5, that's another root 40. 8 times 5 is 40 under the square root. And the last term, so we've got root 8 times root 8. Well, if we follow this example, root 8 times root 8 gives us root 64, which is 8. So I'll just put the 8 down. Square root of 25 is 5. Now that's 1 root 40 plus 1 root 40, so that gives us 2 root 40 plus 8. Then I can add the 5 and the 8. 5 and 8 is 13. Now, we are not finished at this point, although it appears that we may be. The square root of 40 is not given in its simplest form, so let's do some work on that. The square root of 40. What is the biggest square number factor that makes up 40? Well, it's 4. Root 40 can be written as root 4, root 10. Square root of 4 is 2, so it's 2 root 10. So what I'm going to do is to replace the square root of 40 with 2 root 10. And if we expand that bracket, we get 13 plus 4 root 10. So rationalising the denominator, we have a surd on the bottom line, A surd is an irrational number. Remember, we cannot express the square root of 3 as a fraction involving two other numbers, so that's an irrational number. What we want to do then, well, how do we get rid of this root 3? The easiest thing to do is to multiply root 3 by itself. What I'm going to do then, if I multiply the bottom by root 3, I'm going to have to multiply the top by root 3 as well. If I multiply by root 3 over root 3, I'm essentially multiplying by 1, so I'm not changing the value, although I am changing the appearance. So 2 times root 3, remember we're now multiplying two fractions, so tops multiply, that gives me 2 root 3. And the bottoms multiply, root 3 times root 3 is square root of 9. And that's 2 root 3 over 3. And you can see that we now have a rational number on the bottom line, on the denominator. Example 4. So, fraction again, we have a surd on the bottom line. What I'm going to do is to multiply top and bottom, this time by the square root of 20. So, times root 20 over root 20. Remember, you multiply top and bottom. So, that gives us 10 root 20. And root 20 times root 20. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I could write that as root 400. 20 times 20 is 400, so it would be root of 400. I'm just going to go straight to the 20. We cannot leave it like this because there are things that can simplify. We've got a 10 on the top and a 20 on the bottom. That will simplify. And we also have a root 20. That will simplify. That surd is not given in its simplest form. So 10 goes into itself once and into 20 2 times. So we have 1 root 20 over 2. Now, square root of 20. What's the biggest square number factor of 20? It's 4. So we can write it as root 4 root 5. And the square root of 4 is 2. So the square root of 20 can be written as 2 root 5. So 2 root 5 on the top, 2 on the bottom. 2 goes into itself once, 2 goes into itself once. So we end up with 1 root 5 over 1, which is simply root 5. And that is how we rationalise the denominator. The conjugate of a surd. If we have a surd or an expression involving a surd, such as 2 plus root 3, then the conjugate is found by keeping the 2 and the root 3, but by changing the sign. So the conjugate then would be 2 minus root 3. If we multiply the surd, or the original expression, and its conjugate, something interesting happens. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times minus root 3 is minus 2 root 3. And then we have 2 times root 3. And finally we have minus root 3 times root 3. Now, root 3 times root 3 is the root of 9, which is 3, so it's minus 3. Look what happens to the middle terms. We've got a minus 2 root 3 and a 2 root 3. Those two terms cancel out. So we're left with 4 minus 3, which is 1. So multiplying an expression and its conjugate considerably simplifies the expression. So what we have here is a fraction with an irrational denominator. What we want to do is to rationalise the denominator. Now, we're going to do that by multiplying top and bottom by the same thing. The question is, what will we multiply by? We'll multiply by the conjugate of this. So the conjugate is found by changing the sign. Okay, now let's expand. So we've got 2 times 3, which is 6. And then 2 times root 5. So 6 plus 2 root 5 on the top. Can't do anything about that surd on the top, but that doesn't matter to us. On the bottom, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times root 5 minus 3 root 5. The middle terms should always disappear when you multiply by the conjugate. And the last term that we've got is minus root 25, which you may want to write as 5 at that point. So 6 plus 2 root 5 on top. Now I hope you can see plus 3 root 5 minus 3 root 5, that disappears. Square root of 25 is 5. Now something interesting is going to happen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return the top line to this state, so 2 times 3 plus root 5. In other words, I'm taking out 2 as a common factor. There is a reason for it. I've got 9 take away 5 is 4. Hope you can see that reason now, because the 2 and the 4 will simplify. So 2 goes into itself once, 2 goes into 4 twice, and the final answer then to our simplification is 3 plus root 5 over 2.